This is an instrument that I first ordered when I was 16 years old. The guitar is very much our organizing principle. It's the reason we engage with kids around the world. It's fun, it's interesting, you can express yourself with it, and music is this miraculous thing. Music can bring us together. I think of it as a perfect fusion of human and divine, because for manifestation on this plane, the divine needs a vessel. That's something that we have an opportunity to be. In a gesture of kindness, we can be that vessel. I will just say that I feel like it's a kind of ascension. It's maybe a prayer.
Welcome back, everybody, to Love Conquers Fear. I hope you enjoyed the last episode with Chris Beisch. It was an amazing, amazing episode, followed by a dinner that we actually had right afterwards. And the conversation around the table was so moving as we were all probing on trying to decode reality and how humanity is ultimately going to make it to the age of abundance for all. He's a beautiful human being, and I want to give a shout out to episode 32 with Michael Collins for the documentary that he's laboring on that we discussed in that episode called Intuition, which is all around teaching children how to navigate essentially consciousness or source or whatever you would like to call that, to do miraculous things. And outside of the astonishing reveal of what they can do with blindfolds on, including blind children, it really is about teaching them a skill that they can use throughout their life. And that's the big point. It's not just the magic trick of being able to, read while you're completely blindfolded, or, pick out from, a Uno card deck, the yellow 8, or ride a bicycle down the street, and navigate completely blindfolded using that, the third eye, really the soul, to see everything. It's really about developing the whole person, and part of humanity making it to the age of abundance for all is us realizing how to develop those beautiful gifts within ourselves. And I showed Chris Beisch on the way back to the Austin airport to drop him off the trailer that Michael's been using with donors like me. And it moved me to tears again. It moved him to tears. I mean, to see what these children do and think about how that's going to change the world and what kind of leaders are going to grow up to be is just absolutely beautiful. It just really moves my heart. I cannot watch it without tearing up every time. I'm actually starting to tear up now just telling you about it, just thinking about it since I watched it again this morning on the way back to the airport. But today's episode is actually going to be, about a similar topic. And if you haven't watched episode 32 with Michael Collins, definitely dive into that. Just a beautiful heart. And I'm with someone else today that has a beautiful heart that also is very much working with children to teach them how to be much more intuitive and teach them how to be much more fully formed human beings. So I want to welcome Matt to Love Conquers Fear.
Brad, thank you so much.
So good to be with you, brother.
Oh, it is so wonderful to be here. I've so enjoyed watching you have deep and beautiful and meaningful conversations in this space.
Well, thank you so much.
To be here now with you is really an honor.
Well, it's an honor for me, and I should say, shout out to Rick Reeder for introducing us.
Definitely.
I was very happy that he did that, and he's been moved by the podcast and thought, we should really connect. And we had a beautiful connection last time in your studio. And you're the CEO of Austin Classical Guitar.
That's right.
Here we are.
Here's an example of a classical guitar for sure.
Beautiful. Tell me about this one.
This is an instrument that I first ordered when I was 16 years old. I never graduated from high school. I went to college when I was 16 as a young person. And that first year I had a mentor who suggested I get on the list for one of the great American guitar makers.
Yeah.
His name was Robert Ruck.
Okay.
And so Robert was in Washington State, and I got on his list, and it was a long waiting list to get an instrument. And I finished my undergraduate degree 4 years later, and then started my master's here in Austin, and finished that 2 years later, and started my doctorate. And then my mom got a postcard from Robert Ruck saying, "I'm about ready to start making your guitar."
Right.
And so a whole lifetime had passed, what felt like for me. That was about 7.5 years.
Okay. Wow.
And so this is the instrument that he made for me, and it's kind of been the one ever since. It's been with me to many places. I got it in 1999, and this is Western red cedar, and the back and the sides are Indian rosewood, and it's an ebony fretboard. And every rosette, this is a rosette, which is the ornate mosaic around the sound hole of every classical guitar. And these are signatures of every guitar maker. Everyone's unique. And they make them by bundling sticks of different colored wood and then slicing them off and creating these mosaic designs.
It's a beautiful design. And it's that's really cool. It's almost like it's its own signature, its own ISBN number, but in a much more beautiful form. Right? That's really, really cool. And tell me about like the Austin classical guitar journey. Like how did you start it? How old is it? How many children does it reach at this point? What was the big motivation at the beginning?
So much to say. Well, the interesting thing I think is that the motivation at the beginning evolved into something else. And what it started out as was a desire that I had to create a platform for musicians. Okay. I was an undergraduate student studying guitar. I knew many wonderfully talented people around the world, and I received the great advice that so many musicians get from their parents and from people who care about them, which is to go do something else for a profession, make money in another way, and you can play guitar when you want on the weekends, which is wonderful advice for the right people. But for me, I was obstinate and really thought that there was a lot in the world of music that I wanted to continue to explore and to give. And so the classes that we had around music business all had to do with competing for what seemed like a very small slice of pie.
Right.
And as I became enchanted, and I really did, with nonprofit organizations as a teenager, just running a small student club in my undergraduate school, researching economics of the arts in America and starting to learn about the nonprofit structure, I came to a place where I decided I really wanted to make a bigger marketplace. Wanted to add to the capabilities for musicians like myself that I loved and that I respected. And so that was the entry point for me. It was very much trying to build a place where more musicians could thrive. And of course, all the great benefits of that would be for the community to experience great art and for musicians to be supported in the process. But what happened, Brett, was I started to have experiences. And I was 20 years old when I started running ACG.
Yeah.
It was 30 years ago.
Wow.
And so I'm young, and I'm going through my master's degree, and I'm running this organization that interacts with the public. And I start to be challenged. The way we look at so many things in the world is through a progressive lens. The sense that more advanced classes are better than less advanced classes. Higher grades are better than lower grades. More money is better than less money. A higher paying job is what we should aspire to next. Whatever that progressive sense is. And when we apply that to music, wonderful and terrible things happen. So wonderful things are that people progress and become incredible examples of the ability to play music at a very high level and celebrate that. And we do celebrate that. But the downside is all the folks that are left out along the way. I can't tell you how many people have come to me, found out I was a musician and said, "Oh, I was terrible at that." Or I never practiced enough. Or a student will come to a lesson and be immediately shamed within their own mind because they feel as though they aren't good enough for this next experience. And the truth is that there's so much more room for joy, and music can do so much more in the world. So as an example, as a young person, I loved teaching kids, and I had in my mind that I would be someone who could generate through my teaching and through my studio the best guitar players, kids that would go and be on TV and radio and win contests. And actually, it turns out that all of that happened. Mm-hmm. But then in 1999, a woman in her 70s, Lana Burwell, came into my orbit at Austin Classical Guitar and suggested that we start a program for adult amateur players. And it's not that I had no interest in adult amateur players or doing a program for adult amateur players, but it wasn't like, where does that fit on the progress spectrum in the young Matt's mind, right? An adult amateur student is not going to be on the pathway to Carnegie Hall. Mm-hmm. And so I essentially told her I wasn't interested, but she was very persistent. Mm-hmm. And so she carved out a space within our organization to begin rehearsals where adults could come together and play music together. That was 26 years ago. We have members of our adult community ensemble, and now we have 7 such ensembles in the community. But we have members of our adult community ensemble now that were in the 1999 original ensemble. Mm-hmm. Meaning that they've spent 26 years of their lives coming to rehearsals, giving of themselves, finding within themselves things they didn't know that they had, having irreplaceable experiences, building friendships, getting involved with our organization in many ways, from making music to listening to music to volunteering to donating to being on the board of directors. Some of my great friends are through that simple program that wasn't my fault. I didn't do it on purpose. She brought it to me, mm-hmm. and I acquiesced. And so when Lana died in it was 2008, mm-hmm. and her son called me and asked if I would speak at her funeral because what she had done for us had really meant a lot to her in that last decade of her life. I think it was at that moment that I had a little reflection opportunity to realize, whoa, this woman and her kindness and all of the experiences that came about as a result and the other humans that came into our sphere really changed me, mm-hmm. and really changed, be added to the change that would become Austin Classical Guitar, moving from a music organization, a guitar organization, to a life organization, mm-hmm. to a community service organization that exists to inspire people in our community. And many times the guitar happens to be in the room, but lots of times it's not. The guitar is very much our organizing principle. Yeah, it's the reason we engage with kids around the world. It's the reason kids pick it up and play, because it's fun, it's interesting, you can express yourself with it, and music is this miraculous thing that I know we'll talk about today.
Yeah. We are in the music city too.
We are in the music city. It's in the water, it's in the air, right? It's in the ether.
I was born and raised here. My first ever concert was Willie Nelson. I was 4 years old.
Oh wow!
So Willie Nelson backyard barbecue.
How incredible! Yeah. And what an impact that man has made on the world.
Talk about. The Tao of Willie by Turk Pipkin, who's a great human being.
Yeah, needs to be on this podcast if he hasn't already.
I know, he really does. We've supported the Nobility Project for a long time. We actually visited Mahiga Hopai right after it was completed.
Wow.
And that was our big trip to Kenya and Tanzania. And that was personally my favorite trip I've ever had with Deborah in the house. I don't know if you noticed, you probably didn't because we're rushing, but there's a 500-pound giraffe.
I saw that giraffe, of course. Yes,
that's from Kenya.
Is it really?
That's from that trip. Yeah, we wanted to have something pretty awesome to remember the trip. But that was the only time in our entire lives where we felt a little bit like celebrities, because these kids are coming out. Yes. And you have to remember that the situation there is these kids would hike to their middle school, often 4 or 5 miles. Most of their parents didn't even have cars, and they had no high school. And so in this area of Kenya, and so that was it. That was the end of their education. And these kids just surrounded us, and they're pinching our skin.
Yes.
Because it's like they haven't even seen skin this color in their entire life.
Wow.
And anyways, it's so cool what Turk and his wife Christy have done with the Nobility Project, and all the musicians they brought to bear in Austin, to including Willie Nelson, to really, raise money for. I mean, Turk didn't have to do that. Like, he dedicated a huge part of his life to building these schools all over Kenya.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, what a beautiful human being.
And so I marvel at where music lives in that equation. Where music can bring us together. It may be a fundraiser. It might be adults making music together. It might be music as a vessel for words. Music joining with poetry to become the song that's the anthem of our childhood, the anthem of our adolescence. At Austin Classical Guitar, we have had a wonderful and very unusual opportunity to add a new course subject to American public schools. So before 2000, America had orchestra, choir, and band in its school programs, but not guitar. Guitar was rarely taught, and if it was taught, it was kind of a one-off project of maybe of one teacher, but certainly nothing at scale. And the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is that guitar has always been sort of a one-on-one instruction kind of prospect. And we stepped into public school education in 2001 with a small donation, allowing us to give free lessons for kids that couldn't afford them. And to find students that would qualify for the program, we started looking around at schools, and we found a school that had one of these experimental guitar classes. And we stepped into that class to work with the instructor there. He identified several students. We began working with the kids, and very quickly realized that the class was a little bit disorganized. There were just from a sequencing standpoint, the kids were being asked to do things they probably shouldn't quite be doing in the sequence. So we asked if we could help organize the class. And that became a years-long relationship where we were working within the classroom. We were still giving free lessons for some of the kids in the class that would qualify. And pretty quickly, it went from 15 kids to 40 kids. And then the next year, it had 100 kids, and we had 2 sections. And then the next year, the middle school next door heard about it, and they wanted to add a guitar class. And so 2003, I went over there and added a second class. And so by 2004, we knew 2 main things. One was that kids really want to play guitar. There's a lot of kids in America who aren't in the traditional music offerings who would love to play music, and guitar is a great conduit. And the other thing we learned was that we didn't have any idea what we were doing, and neither really did anybody else in terms of classroom-based education. And so the opportunity that we had was really to try to work on that challenge. We developed a pretty robust curriculum, sequencing, ultimately teacher training protocols, teacher training systems, and summits all around the country to begin to do guitar education in a deep kind of inclusive and spiritual way with groups of kids in K-12 schools. And here in Austin, in 2008, the school district was struggling with engagement for kids in fine arts in lower income schools. Whereas in more affluent schools, there were many options for kids to take very high quality fine arts classes. In lower income schools, there were less options, less kids involved, and less support from things like parental booster clubs. But by that point, we had 5 guitar programs in 5 Title I schools. And all 5 of them were fully enrolled. Couldn't fit any more kids into those classes. And so the district grabbed us and said, well, we want you to add guitar in all the schools.
Wow.
So we did that.
What a gift.
And in the process of adding programs to all the schools, we had many more schools around the country, around Texas, around the country, and outside of the country start to ask us for help. So we've had this incredible chance to work with tens of thousands of kids, and At this moment, there's more kids enrolled in guitar class in Austin ISD than in any other music program except band.
Wow.
And so it's a major leg of the table. And the remarkable thing, Brett, is that it's not about the guitar, and it never was.
Yeah.
Guitar happens to be a medium through which we can find meaning, we can find connection. And it could have been something else. Guitar has its wonderful qualities that make it unique, and it's so popular. And speaking of Africa, we have an amazing program in an orphanage there in Uganda that is just lights my brain up every time they show me another video. But the opportunity to supply instruments and then supply curriculum and teacher training and then let humans make beauty and find beauty together is really the opportunity that we've had in the organization, and it's one that I'm eternally grateful for.
I mean, it's really amazing the level of impact. Did you ever have a board conversation where people are like, maybe we should change the name? It's like we're having a nationwide impact. Although with the name Austin in it,
yes,
it is known as the musical city. But
yes,
it's just incredible, like to think about that kind of nationwide impact.
It is
and international impact.
Yeah. It has been a conversation for sure. When we wonder about, honestly, the curriculum lives within its sub-brand, Guitar Curriculum and guitarcurriculum.com, and that's where if you're a teacher somewhere in the world interacting with us, you probably know us as Guitar Curriculum, not Austin Classical Guitar necessarily. Yeah. I'm just in wonder about it, and I'm constantly in wonder about music as part of this equation because. We decided that our change agents are really beauty and kindness, and beauty. It's like the nucleus and the electron that make up an atom. It's beauty is the reason people leave their homes and come to our concert hall. It's the reason we get together. People hear about an artist and they say, "I want to see that artist."
Yeah.
And kindness, though, is the electron. It's that invisible thing that's operating throughout the whole space. It's what we train our teachers on. It's what we train our staff and our volunteers on. How do you welcome people into this space now that the space is made? And when those two things collaborate, it's incredible how souls change and relationships develop over time.
Yeah, on episode 25 of the podcast, Patrick Gentempo, he said the way that he defines love is actually it's witnessing beauty. Wow. That when you witness beauty, that's like witnessing God.
Wow.
And that is the definition of love. And I just thought that that's just such a amazing way to look at it. And you get, obvious examples. I mean, I habitually, and I've raised our daughters this way to say, if you really witness a sunrise or sunset, you get a day of your life back at the end, And I don't know if it's a day or not, but like to witness beauty. And our older daughter Rachel, who we were talking about earlier, who by the way started out playing classical guitar.
Oh,
I haven't told you that.
How about that?
She would be one of those that would now tell you, "Oh, I fell off the wagon" or whatever.
Yes.
But she can pick it back up. I mean, that's the thing; you can return to it. But she was. It was really beautiful to see her in concerts, and it was really, really cool. She just has so many interests, so many interests. I mean, I told you she's a triple major at Tulane.
That's incredible.
But she wrote about it in her essay, one of her essays to get into Tulane.
Wow.
Patrick was like just witnessing, a beautiful sunset, a beautiful sunrise, just a moment with a child, etc. That is the definition of love, that witnessing of beauty.
I love it so much. Yeah. And it's so powerful. And I'm going to think about that as a definition for love, because certainly witnessing beauty has been a thread in my life.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how much beauty you've seen.
It's
think
unreasonable.
About your life arc. Clearly this is your calling. You can just see it. The way you light up, and And I just absolutely love your heart. I'm sure you're just seeing beauty all the time, where you're seeing a kid's life transformed by picking this up.
Last night, we have a theater here in town called the Rosette, and it's an intimate 85-seat theater in Hyde Park. But a husband and wife on stage, he was playing what they call a chromatic harmonica, which is a big old harmonica with a key that allows you to play every note, and that's not a normal harmonica. And then she was playing guitar, and they were doing tangos all night long. John Burnett was there, who, if you've ever listened to NPR and heard any story in the last 40 years about Texas or Mexico, it was John Burnett. He was in the audience. He's a harmonica enthusiast, and so he was so excited to see the show. Brought Michael Crockett from KUT, who does the Brazilian music horizonte show. They were there, super knowledgeable, right? Dear friends were scattered throughout the audience. Right behind them was we've been very deeply involved in doing education work with incarcerated youth for the last 15 years. And built the very first and only 4-credit daily performing arts course for incarcerated kids in Texas. But one of our offshoots of that program is to work with kids who are court involved in the community. And there's a program that sent us a young lady who's as part of her court mandated work is displaying her progress through work with our organization. She's learning to play the guitar. And last night she wanted to volunteer for the concert and see the show. So she was sitting one table behind. There was a gentleman there who I haven't seen in a long time, and I actually saw him again this morning. He came by the theater and gave us a contribution. So I say all of that only to say that the beauty that I get to see is so wild, because it's the beauty on stage, and then it's the awareness that the experience of beauty for each of these individuals, some of them with knowledge and aspiration, some of them with history with us, some of them just beginning their journey and in that really difficult stage of life where they've got some challenges to overcome, all in the room at the same time, experiencing so much meaning. I really think that's what we're up to, right? It is. I'm going with Patrick. I think it's love.
Yeah.
I think beauty's all around us, right?
Course.
I mean, there's the obvious beauty of the things that we call beautiful, and then there's the ant crawling across the threshold in front of our door. And
that's right.
There's the urban environment, and there's the bridge that human beings have somehow created, and there's the internet, and there's do you know John O'Donohue?
I know the name, but I don't know him.
He wrote a book called Beauty, and I'm going to recommend it. It's,
good.
John O'Donohue was a priest who left the priesthood to become a poet and a mystic. And he passed away in 2008. There's a magnificent interview on Being with Krista Tippett with John O'Donohue. He's Irish. And,
we'll put a link in the show notes.
I love it. I love it. The reason I bring it up is that he said something once that stuck with me, and it was talking about how effort applied to things, this is my paraphrase, is a preparation of the soul. If we take that time and attention to learn something or to watch the sunset with our attention, that the effort that we spend in that action is what prepares the soul for the experience of beauty.
That's really cool. And of course, our souls are living in a place of absolute beauty and in a place of light and love. And we know through quantum physics that it all goes down to that level as well.
Yeah.
I know that you're a deeply spiritual person, and I also know you wrote this book, Form and Essence. What was your goal? Well, first of all, let's just discuss the book. What it's about, but also what was your goal in writing that? What was your goal with humanity in terms of, did you want humanity to have a sort of heart shift?
I really, really hope so.
Yeah,
that's the hope. Form and Essence was a product of having spent at that point just over 25 years doing the work that we've been talking about. So not only playing the guitar and experiencing incredible music and watching people's lives transformed with it, be they kids in Title I schools or kids in Uganda or kids in prison or kids in affluent schools or the general public, but also being the guy who has to find the money to make it all possible. And so in a way, that's a kind of a knife edge between two worlds that I think most people don't think necessarily go together terribly well. It's the primordial soup of creativity, which is hard to pin down and hard to quantify, and the world of sort of finance. So those of us in the nonprofit fundraising space are often walking along that space, and I kind of love it. I think it's a wonderful space to inhabit because I think there's something spiritual about that, actually. I think just like there in our world, we conceive at least of sort of the mortal physical plane and the divine spiritual plane, and then what we seek for the connection between the two. These are two elements also that do beautiful things when they're connected. And so it's wonderful to be kind of in that space of trying to figure that puzzle out.
I mean, it's clear from all ancient spiritual texts that the goal of the soul and lifetime to lifetime is to manifest love. And nonprofit work is the ultimate manifestation of that, because you're really trying to create a big impact. And I've always said it's some of the hardest work because you're raising money from people for a karmic benefit versus a capitalistic benefit.
That's right.
So you know that you're really focused on moving the heart and moving humanity, really uplifting humanity in a beautiful way. And not that capitalism can't do that, it does.
Yes.
Especially conscious capitalism does that really well.
A term coined by the last guest I saw.
Yes.
The podcast, I believe.
John Mackey was on episode 30.
Yes.
The co-founder of that movement.
Yeah.
And wrote a beautiful book on it with Raj Sisodia, who I also served on the board of Conscious Capitalism with. And
wow.
Both of them are amazing people. I'll definitely have Raj on the podcast. He and I are due for a catch up, and
excellent.
I know he likes it. We had an exchange about it.
The book was reflections on in 25 years of that life, and a concern that I have that if we can say form is things we can see, own, measure, claim to be true in ideological sense, things you can put on a bumper sticker and say, this is it. I've defined it, and that's what, so the idea taking form in that sense. And essence being everything else, back to the electron and nucleus analogy, but essence being the swirling things, the emotions, the meta characteristics within us, things like resilience, the significance of things, the actual meaning of things. Not what it is, not what we say, but what we mean.
Right.
What that carries, or the spirit. And I think that there's a component of mental health within all of that as well, as much as that is a hard science in a lot of ways also. My worry was that we as a society are focused overmuch on form. And while elements of essence are known to be important to each and every one of us, when it comes down to making the systems that we make, making the decisions that we make, form almost always wins. It's kind of, it has an outsized place. And so I sort of present form and essence as co-equals. It's not an either or, but it's very much two things that work beautifully together. I think of, my lens through education and getting to see into systems where we see so many thousands of kids struggling and thriving. There are so many factors that will form the platform for success for a young individual. And those are mostly meta characteristics. They're mostly that sense of confidence, that sense of direction, the kinds of things that you get from having great parents who have cared about you and loved you and supported you through success and through failure. The grit, the stick-with-itness. Angela Duckworth on TED Talk talked about grit.
That's a great talk.
And all of those things are not what we test. Because we test a kind of aptitude in math, reading, and science that we think are the purposes of education from a structural standpoint and from a funding standpoint. And really, there's not even anything necessarily wrong with that. It's great to measure outputs, and you got to measure something. But whoa, do we get confused along the way. As the days and weeks and months unfold, we can start to do things like eliminate art and music from a school because test scores were low and we need to have higher test scores, and so we're going to do more math, reading, and science so that we've got a problem that looks like a nail, and we're going to get a hammer, we're going to hit the nail with the hammer because that's an obvious solution to an obvious problem. But my experience is that humans are a lot more complicated than that. And creating nurturing spaces in a very holistic sense, creating a space where we can perceive beauty on a daily basis, for example, as a core strategy for success, not as a nice to have or an icing on the cake, is what leads to phenomenal success. My only expertise in this arena from a direct observational standpoint is through watching teachers succeed. And we ended up actually devising a system for bringing essence into the classroom, which was something we called the 5 elements, which was belonging, personal responsibility, perseverance through challenges leading to small successes, performance, and celebration as the 5 elements that must exist in every classroom every single day. And what are the teacher behaviors that bring about belonging and a sense of personal responsibility and the rest every day in performance and celebration? And the thing is when you do all that or something like it, you create energy. You create good, positive energy. You get kids that want to go to your classroom. And if all we're focused on is how many beats per minute you can play a C major scale, how fast, how perfect, how much better. If you're in book 1, well, golly, you got to get to book 2 as fast as possible. If we've got a progress mindset or a measurement orientation around human development, then we can leave the humans behind.
Some of the greatest musicians were the paradigm breakers, right? The ones that didn't just follow the linear progression to, one of the chapters in the book that's coming out this year that I wrote called Love Conquers Fear, Humanity, AI, and the Age of Abundance for All. Really this, the podcast is a precursor to that, and it'll probably continue well after the book, but is on education. And we can't pretend like education is just dialed in. And we beat up on America about that typically as Americans, but the reality is there's a worldwide problem with it. There's a lot of countries that are really languishing when it comes to education, and I think this age that we're going to enter into with the Age of Abundance for All, its essence is going to matter way more than form, because the acceleration we're having with AI, quantum computing, robotics is going to lead to form largely being taken care of. I mean, there's a lot of things to discover in form. We only know what 4% of the universe is made of. We call that matter. We don't know what 96% is. So we call it dark energy and dark matter. We have no idea. There's never been a reconciliation between quantum and classical science. We don't know what consciousness is. We were talking about The Secret of Secrets.
That's right.
And you just finished reading it as well.
Yes.
A great book by Dan Brown. He's done a great service to humanity and leveraging his megaphone to really put the meticulously documented science out there about the evidence is consciousness is fundamental in something that we receive, and we're derivative of that. And obviously the telepathy tapes, they just wrapped up season 2 at the end of 2025, which is a great season.
Wow.
More evidence of non-local consciousness. This essence is really what makes us most human. As Yimi was talking about in the episode that I did with him, we are training people through education to be like robots. Mm-hmm. We need to train them to really be fully formed human beings and leverage all of their gifts. And I was talking with Amos in that episode about how business people too are artists. Can choose
Absolutely.
to be artists.
Absolutely.
Artists everywhere. If we take that,
100%.
If we take that, and so essence is really so key to. It's never going to matter more than it's going to matter in the next 10 to 15 years in terms of what is the nature that of us being most human. Like, what is it about us that's actually special? And you're bringing that out in this program.
Yeah, I hope that that's the result. I think that the spaces that we try to make in at least through the work with music. Music is such a mysterious actor. All of this is mysterious, of course, right? That's why it's difficult to talk about, and but it's so important to talk about.
Yeah.
I think of it as a perfect fusion of human and divine. Mm-hmm. It's like a smile.
Yeah,
is a perfect fusion of human and divine.
Yeah.
Because for manifestation on this plane, the divine needs a vessel, and that's something that we have an opportunity to be. Yeah. And in a gesture of kindness, we can be that vessel. Mm-hmm. We can radiate and share love in so many ways, and I think music is the same way, and that it very much takes a human to do it, to write it, to be it, to sing, or to move a string and create vibration. But what in the world does it mean? Mm-hmm. What does a note mean? Where it's something. It's so miraculous to me, even after all these years of doing it, that we don't have really much of a verbal sense of what this nonverbal communication is all about. Mm-hmm. We can ascribe meaning to it, but yet it's meaningful to every single person. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things is working with 5-year-olds. And we think of 5-year-olds as being elementary in their skills, and I suppose that's a fair thing to say. But if you give a 5-year-old a guitar and set them up and begin doing something that they're able to do rhythmically, then instantaneously their little body starts swaying back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are so advanced music makers, because the music itself is very meaningful to that body and to that spirit. And we just don't know what it is. And back to the varied audience that I had in my theater last night, each of those people receiving that beauty and recognizing it in that space means it can mean more than one thing, right? It's each observer is able to have it reach them in its own way. And I think that's different than most words. Yeah. Words often carry so much specificity to them than that there's obviously also very, very powerful.
Yeah. But have you ever seen the documentary Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds?
No, I haven't.
Oh gosh, you're gonna be very happy about this one. Highly recommend. At the beginning of what I'll call my soul quest, where I set my intentionality in Kerala. At the end of 2024, that 2025 would be all about the inner journey, and led to me reading over 55 books. Some of them twice, like Chris Beish, who I just had on. The universe, it really, what it does is it brings together science and spirituality in a really beautiful way, and including quantum physics and the ancient mystical text. And it really makes a very strong case and shows very strong evidence that the universe itself has so many different vibratory fields. And I just think you would love it, because it reframes just the mere act, the mere essence of sound, as a spiritual vibratory field that can actually shape matter too. And shows a lot of examples of that. How do you think about that in terms of, music and whatever this reality is that we're living in?
Yeah, I think of, what I get to witness is transformation over time. So I have experienced so many young people years after the fact point back to a moment when their lives changed because an artist came to their classroom and performed, for example. This is not an isolated occasion for me. And I think about that a lot. I think about, okay, how does a person's trajectory change through an impact that occurred in essence? It's about how intention itself is carried. And I think music is a vessel for intention. And so that can come and land within us when we hear, well, it does every time. And depending on how open we are, or aware we are, or ready we are, or prepared our soul is, as John O'Donohue would say. We had a young lady a couple years ago who was detained at the Gardner Betts Juvenile Detention Center here in Travis County, who was in our guitar class. She was doing really well. And she asked her teacher if she could play a piece of music for the judge. And she was in a four-phase trial scenario. And she was trying to get from phase 3 to phase 4. And so the piece she wanted to play happened to be a piece that I had written. And I'd never met her before.
Wow.
And so the teacher asked if I would come to the courtroom and play the piece with her, because he wasn't going to be able to be there. He had to be out of town on that day. So I brought 2 guitars with me to the courtroom, and I sat through 3 other phase trials before hers. And the courtroom was cold, physically and figuratively. And each trial was interesting to watch because you had the young person and you had a team of maybe 3 or 4 people around, an attorney and a caseworker and a teacher or something, and the judge. And basically each person was examined. Their behavior was examined. They were giving testimony, and they were being judged. And I had never met this person. Still, even at this point, we'd never met each other. But she saw me with the guitars, and I saw her waiting, and so we kind of sussed each other out. So then it was her turn, and they did the similar process with her. At which point, the judge is looking at her notes, and she says, "It says here you want to play the guitar."
Right. Yeah, I imagine this doesn't happen in the courtroom all that often.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
This may have been a first.
Yeah.
And the girl said, "Yeah." And so the judge said, "Okay, well, I'll give you 2 minutes to get ready." Brought my guitar down to the 2 guitars down, and I met her and introduced myself, and she was nervous, and we sat, and I'll never forget we were sitting very close together on purpose because I wanted her to just hear the guitars fully, and so I just had her play a couple of notes, and I saw the fingers shaking on the strings as she's but one of the things we're good at is setting kids up for success. So we knew that what she was going to do that day, she was going to do great.
Yeah.
It was going to be expressive.
How old
it was going to be
she?
Powerful. She was probably 15.
Okay.
And then beauty. This thing happened. We played something gorgeous together.
Wow.
And it had a beautiful, soft start. All throughout, it had rises and falls that she had learned, that she really committed to. There were 2 points along the way where we slowed down together and communicated, even though we'd never met each other before, and ended phrases. And there was one long, we call a crescendo in music, where it gets louder, progressively louder. That's the best I've got for you in terms of atomic transformation with music.
Yeah.
That space was completely transformed in that moment.
You took a cold place that people are very, very nervous just going into a courtroom. I mean, almost anybody for anything.
Yes.
Whether or not they think they're in the right or wrong.
Yeah.
In terms of their setup to win the case. And, you know, there you are transforming the entire space through vibration.
And she changes her narrative.
Yeah.
Right up until that moment, she is this, you know, object that's being judged by a bunch of people that have power literally over her. Mm-hmm. And then she has a moment where she's an artist.
Mm-hmm. Did that lead to a good outcome for her? And
yes, as far as I know. Yes, as far as I know. These are tricky. You know, we have thousands of hours of service now in lockdown facilities in Texas. Yeah. But it is true that it's a pretty dense environment to work in, and because of probably good reasons, you know, you're not always able to actually track people when they leave and get identities and things. So, right. But we know that in the months that we have with people within the facility, that really special and beautiful things happen, and in many cases we have been able to continue relationships as well.
Yeah. You know, in episode 33 of the podcast with Susie Sosa and Alex, I can't remember Alex's last name right now, but she's the chair and he's the CEO of Level, which helps the incarcerated through education. Wow. And it's actually having a real heyday because now it's much more powered by AI to be able to help create that lift. And it was shocking to me that in the United States, we have 4% of the world's population. That's simple. Knew that. But we have 25% of the world's incarcerated, and largely, you know, forgotten about. Like, get labeled that way. You know, Anthony DeMello in the book Awareness, which is a great one that I just reread here at the beginning of 2026 as I was preparing for a silent meditation retreat. Ooh, my first one ever. Excellent. Actually. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. I talked about it a couple of episodes ago. But you know, 4 days, you know, it really tunes up your senses. You know, to do something like that, really to bear witness to consciousness in a very deep way, and you start to see beauty everywhere. You start to see beauty everywhere. Oh, it's all the little details that you would just miss because you're thinking about the next thing or worrying about the past, and you know, just completely missing the only moment that matters, which is the present. And you know, there is no moment but the present, and it's the eternal present. And the teachers John and Will Kabat-Zinn call it a radical act of sanity. Take your seat, and I know you're into meditation. How do you? I mean, your essence, you know, your soul, is just so soothing to be around. Oh wow! And so beautiful. Like, how do you kind of, you know, stay grounded? Because a CEO job, I've been a CEO, you know, yes, you have 6 times, and it's you know, it's an intense job, and I mentor lots of CEOs. You know, we're investors in about 150 startups, and wow, Brett. And one of the things, and we've been doing it a long time, and we're also investors in a number of VC funds. You know, one of the things I always tell CEOs is that one of the hardest skills for me to develop, and Vedanta helped me a lot with this, the study of Vedanta in India, is to be more calm ocean inside, not ride such the high emotions up and the high emotions down, and try to maintain your sense of objectivity, not being a robot. You know, you're human, you feel it, but you know, trying to be this steady, cool hand on the wheel. And the best way I found to do that is through being in nature, you know, exercising regularly, and following a path of spiritual development, which takes a lot of work. It really does take a lot of work, but it's the embodiment. You know, it gets your soul more embodied in your physical vessel so that that light and love can shine through. And I'm just curious, like, what are your techniques? What is your practice like?
Oh, wow. There's actually quite a few. I mean, a handful, I should say. There's some things that I've been doing for a long time that really are routine for me, that helps keep me grounded. One is Qigong breath meditation that I learned when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then I engaged with it for about a dozen years. When I was getting ready to go perform, before I walked out on stage, I would do this meditation because I'd found as a young person that, wow, okay, this is pretty relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do this before I go out on stage. And then at some point, probably around 30, I realized this is just good. I think I want to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Why not every day?
Yeah.
And so, and that's a breath meditation that really tracks the body through points that start at the head, and it's almost like a sensation of being filled with oil, and the oil lowering with each exhale through points that go through the nose and the Adam's apple and the upper chest and lower and upper thigh and knees, and then out through the toes, and then the same thing on the back, and then the sides as well. So it's the 3-part breath meditation that brings me into my body.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the name of it again?
Qigong.
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 Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah.
And then I discovered something in a moment of crisis. Was actually a milestone. We had reached a point in the organization where it sort of achieved the dreams, and then I had a now what moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that unfolded, of course, over months. But I was spinning around, losing myself a little bit, and through a bunch of introspection, came upon an idea. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that I had a sort of an unsolvable equation in my mind that was sublogical, that was impacting the way I was going into things, that was causing stress. And it was a desire essentially to please people and to have everybody be happy all the time. And I'm fine when people aren't. Deal with it every day. But this wasn't about that. This was an unsolvable, something over infinity. And it was making things difficult. And so I came up with a simple statement, which was, I rise above the cares of others.
I rise above the cares of others.
Rise above the cares of others. And that wasn't meant to mean I'm going to be a jerk now.
Right.
Take care of number one,
I don't see any form of jerkiness in your vessel.
But it was very much for me specifically about this one thing.
Yeah.
And I discovered that bringing that forward in my consciousness solved the problem instantly. Mm-hmm. But it was only a brief solution, and the habit of thought would start to creep back in, and I would find that the stress was back and the worry, and I was not enjoying any of the work, and I would go to beautiful concerts and couldn't wait till they were over.
Oh my gosh!
Because there was this thing that was gnawing, that was what's going to go wrong, but it was not even that logical. It was sublogical. I rise above the cares of others, and then I thought, okay, Matt, you're a classical musician. You know that in order to get great at something, you have to practice it, not once a week, not even once a day, but throughout your life and habituate it in a powerful way. And so I rise above the cares of others became a mantra. Mm-hmm. I practice the mantra multiple times a day. And then I started to discover others. Ended up finding 15. Mm-hmm. So I have 15 things that I practice each day, and some of them are actually keys to positivity. They're not trying to ward off the evil spirits, like I rise above the cares of others. There are other things that bring me great joy, like I am white hot energy. It's a silly one, but it's the way I feel. It was the best way to describe a feeling in my body when I'm inspired. Mm-hmm. And I found that just thinking about it, just speaking the words right now, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm fired up.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to practice that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So mantra practice, that was very unique to me, but became a meditation, and the Qigong, and the journal. And the journal is the mind primarily. It's a gateway to other things, but it's that. So it's mind, it's body, it's spirit, and those 3 things that are sort of part of my daily practice.
I feel compelled to ask you this question because it's one that people get all the time, or they're thinking all the time. A lot of them are afraid to ask because they don't want to embarrass themselves. And we just need to be like super authentic. But
Yeah.
what do you say to the person who says, Matt, I just don't have time. I just don't have time. I don't have time to do that. Right. And they could even have that transference. And I've been a, recipient of this myself, where it's like, well, you can do that because you're CEO,
Right,
like,
right. Good for you, right? You've got the resources.
Right, exactly.
Right. Make your own schedule.
And one of the things I've talked about on this podcast quite a bit is that quite a few of the most spiritually developed people I've ever met in my entire life have very, very, very little, and are working, manual labor type jobs. And we visited Bhutan over the winter break for for me and the kids' first time. It was Deborah's second time. And, it's known as one of the happiest countries on earth. It's a deeply Buddhist culture. It's all about happiness is found on the inside. It's not very capitalistic. It's but it's all about that deep inner journey. And you can just feel the energy there. You can feel the happiness of the people versus sometimes, the mania that we have in aspects of American culture.
Yeah.
And frankly, a lot of the algorithmic manipulation, which keeps us there, the dystopia pushed to us by the media, the dystopia pushed to us by social media, and just kind of trying to hijack our basest fears and really our amygdala to keep us just click, 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 like mice in a maze looking for the cheese.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, like, what do you say to those people? Like, how do you develop these practices for the quote unquote super busy people? I mean, everybody. I think I don't know if I've met that many people who are like, oh yeah, I'm not super busy.
They're at the wall again today.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah.
Well, there's so many things to say. I mean, the first has got to be love, though. Mm-hmm. You deserve this.
Yeah. What you just said is an unusual thing in a beautiful way, because you are constantly leading an organization which is committing so many beautiful acts of service. And one thing that's really challenging for like spiritual, clergy, is that they're giving so much that they actually forget about the nourishment of themselves and to love themselves. And so I just want to double click on that what you just said is unusual in a great way. And all the spiritual texts are reminding us, hey, we have to allow love to conquer our own fear. Then we can help other people go through that journey. And then we do it together, humanity ascends, right? That's how heaven and earth merge. And so I love that.
I mean, we're so much more effective when we are inspired. Mm-hmm. I actually wrote a blog post about this recently called The Fire of Inspiration. But it was really a love letter to my board of directors who wring their hands in their perceived duty to raise money for our organization, to help raise money for the organization. Mm-hmm. And then nobody trusts me. It's always the organizations that hire me to be a consultant to come and help them that I feel like the words are really listened to. But when you're the local guy, it's harder. I always try to suggest, just come to what we do and open your heart and be moved. Mm-hmm. Be truly moved. Right. Don't come there out of a sense of duty. If you don't like one kind of concert, then come to another kind of a concert. Mm-hmm. Come to the thing you love.
Right.
Meet our students. Mm-hmm. Talk to them. Because once you do that, you will be a superior fundraiser. Mm-hmm. You may not know it, but you're going to speak about these experiences to people. And when you do, the metaphysics of the experiences that you've had will cause you to be a superior advocate, which will lead to things we can't possibly predict.
Right.
But they're going to be good, because there's no way they couldn't be, because that's how the universe works. It's so difficult, I think, that we get into narratives as humans, that we speak a narrative that holds us in a certain level of consciousness. I am a busy person. Mm-hmm. That's a narrative.
Right. You tell yourself that all the time. guess what?
Exactly.
You're going to be right.
Absolutely. I work hard, or I worked really hard to get here. You're carrying that. And we could probably make the dossier that would be factually substantive of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you want from that? What is that? How is that serving you? Do you want everybody to know? Is it important to you that you're seen sweating or that you're seen rushing? Do you need people to bow down in some way and defer? All of that is weight, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and we just deserve better. I do have conversations of a spiritual nature with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It just sort of happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just kind of walking in the world a certain way, and this happens to you all the time, I'm sure.
It
Brett.
does,
You know,
yeah.
you happen to, and people say, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
At some point, how are you doing that? And they want to know, and I think that's the entry point.
Last year, I've shared this on the podcast quite a few times, 10 friends told me about their near-death experiences.
Oh.
And before 2025, you know how many friends had told me?
Zero.
And some of these were friends for 10 to 20 years.
Wow.
Had not told me about the most transformative experience of their lives. Like I haven't had a near-death experience. But, that's one where, I'm going to have Evan Alexander actually on the podcast, who wrote Proof of Heaven.
Wow.
And that's the most amazing kind of firsthand account of a near-death experience where he saw what heaven was. And, that's completely transformative forever, because then that we actually come from this place of light and love, and that we have a soul. And I think it's around 10 million Americans who've had those.
Wow.
But creating that aura, container, energy, whatever it is of, hey, I'm open to talking about these things. Not am I open, but this is the most important essence of what makes us human. Do we have a soul? Is there God? Where are we going? Why are we here? What matters more than that? And the development of one's being in a lifetime is so important in the way you're able to move in the world and be hopefully of service to others and to help humanity ascend.
I spend a fair amount of time in the book talking about environment, creating one's environment so that it's conducive to this kind of development. We tend to think of, spiritual development as being all stuff we got to do, sort of like exercise, and there's a big component to that. But I do think that we're in control of our media consumption. We're in control of the people that we interact with. And sometimes if we're CEOs, we have to interact with lots of people, and there's less control about every single person. But there's those people that you can go to get your inspiration from, or to share inspiration with, and surrounding oneself with colleagues that are uplifting is a really powerful technique. In Form and Essence, I kind of narrow it down to gratitude, awareness, and wonder. I think gratitude is just one of those hacks. It's a great spiritual hack, because gratitude spins out of things that exist right in front of us. I can be grateful for this guitar.
Right.
And I got to be honest, I am grateful for that guitar, Brett, but I hadn't thought about it until just this moment in this conversation. It's been sitting there.
Yeah.
But whoa, am I so grateful for it.
Yeah.
And as I say those words, all the love and the experiences that I've had with it come flooding back to me just in the act of gratitude. And so if we look at that and say, okay, well, wait a minute, gratitude's easy. It's easy to do. It's right there. There's things all around us to be grateful for, people, opportunities, objects, thoughts. Then we can lift ourselves in that way. And I think that's a gateway to awareness. But as you step out into the world, it gets trickier. And I think that one of the challenges that we face now is this influx of massive amounts of information, many of which have to do with things that we don't really have direct dominion over, and so we can care about things that are happening far away, for example, and then much of that is tinged with a whose fault is it sort of a mindset. Right. So we're also typically led to this terrible thing is happening in this part of the world and it's somebody's fault. Mm-hmm. And so that's an invitation for our soul to get just a little bit darker.
Right.
And to carry now some anger or some fear. Mm-hmm. And that's costly.
So I'd like to shift a bit, and I know that you're actually a pretty prolific author, actually. So you kind of like astonished me a bit. You know, I gave you a copy of The Lattice. Yeah. You know, we talked about it a bit, and then you were telling me about your fantasy books. And
ooh,
I was like, wait, hold on. There's 5 out. There's a 6th one coming out. And,
yes.
You know what I mean? It's
yes.
unbelievable.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
I am having so much fun with this, Brett, and so the series is called Tinder and Flint.
Yeah.
So the things you use to make sparks and fire in a campfire, right? Yeah. Tinder and Flint, and fire indeed is a big part of this particular series. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on. I think back to self-care. Mm-hmm. The series really began as something that I wanted to do to get in touch with the boy that I had been before I started doing guitar all the time and nonprofits all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned I never finished high school and just all of a sudden was in college at 16 years old. And then I was running a nonprofit when I was 20, and I've been doing that for 30 years. So it's kind of a little bit like an escalator that I kind of got on. It found me, or I found it, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But somewhere in my late 30s, I was doing these introspections and I was finding these mantras. And actually one of them, this is true, one of the mantras that I ended up landing on was, I am Matthew Hinsley, mm-hmm. which doesn't mean anything to anybody. But to me, what it meant was, I used to be a person that I have forgotten about. Mm-hmm. And I want to revisit that person. Mm. And so I started thinking each day about my childhood, usually, and really transporting my mind back to the bedroom, the fish, the rug, the closet, the paint on the door, the stain on the side of the door where our animals would go in and out of the kitchen door. We had horses in the back, and so many places to visit mm-hmm. that were dear to me that I hadn't thought about at all in many, many years.
Right.
And I started doing that every day 13 years ago. Mm. So I've now taken thousands of trips back into my memory of my childhood.
Yeah.
But in the process of doing that, one of the things that I also was very clear to me was that fantasy is a world that I always enjoyed as a young person, and I enjoy casually as an adult.
I have to imagine that we share our love for J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh yes, we do.
Is that best movie series?
Yes.
Best series of books, including The Hobbit.
Yes.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah, my mother read me The Hobbit at some point in my childhood, and I was never the same after that. And
I mean, The Lord of the Rings, like reading it makes you want to go on a journey.
It does.
Because you feel like you are on the journey with them.
It does.
It's just beautiful writing.
And it's the paradigm, right? It's the hero's journey. It's Star Wars. It's Harry Potter. It's Lord of the Rings. It's these things that are so much of what each of us in the course of our lifetimes go through, maybe more than once.
Yeah, shout out to Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really codified the hero's journey.
Absolutely. I wrote a piece of music last year called Journey. It was 10 pieces all about that paradigm.
I covered the hero's journey in Love Conquers Fear.
Oh, goody. Okay, I can't wait. So this is a roundabout way of saying that I started writing a story, and it was, in a sense, a love story to some friends of mine, so I kind of built them in as characters. Mm-hmm. And then my mother had read me The Hobbit when I was a kid, and I wrote my first chapter or two, and I sent it to her, just emailed it to her, and she liked it. And writing is kind of a happy place for me. At this point, I'd written a nonfiction book about how to build a nonprofit arts organization, and before that, a guitar book. And I enjoy writing. And so I wrote another chapter or two and sent it to my mom. And after about the third or fourth shipment of chapters to Mom, she accused me of making it up. She's a practical joker, and she was basically saying, "This is pretty good. You know, did you really write this?"
Right.
And she thought I was playing a joke on it.
Right. You found some old Tolkien archives.
Right, exactly. But in seriousness, the series is very much an opportunity, and fantasy is great for this. It's an opportunity to look at things like form and essence in another lens, to say, okay, how does kindness work in this world? How does personal self-development, spiritual development work? In lots of fantasy traditions, you have things like clerics. Well, a cleric is a magical being and they can do cool stuff, but it's all rooted in what? It's rooted in their connection to faith.
Right.
Magic users are interesting, and they learn all of the things that you can put together in components and make spells, and that's fun, but it's rooted in what? It's rooted in education, curiosity, and development of the mind and understanding of the cosmos, right? Yeah. And so there are all of these kind of parallels that are easy to work with as you're writing. And one of my great concerns in the world today has to do with what appears to me to be unnecessary fracturing. And so in this particular world of Tinder and Flint, while you won't meet this individual until the fourth book, there is action happening in the world that's causing people to fracture. Mm-hmm. And so I'm playing with that. And it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's specifically not about that. It's specifically about the rift, the space in between the two poles, and energizing that space, and playing with it and benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. And so it's really the energy of separation itself, which is not unlike Sauron. And Sauron, we never really see corporeally in Lord of the Rings. He's just the eye, but he's bad.
Right.
And he draws all the people to him and creates these things. But so it's not unlike something along those lines, but it's certainly its own world. So I've been having loads of fun with it. I even had somebody option it for a screen adaptation.
Oh, cool.
Working to develop it as an animated TV series. So we'll see if anything happens with that.
That would be amazing.
And I'm having fun imagining that. So 4 are out, and every place name. This is a fun little secret. Every place in the entire series is taken from a street name in Terrytown.
Oh, cool.
So Rockmore is the second book. Meriden is the third.
Terrytown being a pretty famous area in Austin.
Right. And Dormarion, and then the new book is called Castle Hill.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I used to love going to Castle Hill Cafe.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I've got a lot of great memories with parents, who unfortunately passed away. But they were amazing. But like going there. I haven't thought about that place for a long time. I share my love for bringing people together. I think that a lot of suffering in the world has been through the dogmatic separation of things, whether it's, political parties, or whether it's science and spirituality, or I was having this conversation with Chris Bosch, and we were talking about it as well over dinner. That think about the unnecessariness of just the fact that the study of consciousness was taboo. Mm-hmm. Like 20 years ago, you'd be laughed out of the room if you were an academic and said, "Hey, I want to really study consciousness." And what are we at all as human beings without consciousness? That is the essence of what makes us most human. And I think there's something very divine about it. I think it exists in the quantum realm. These are, the quantum realm part is a theory at least, but I think there's a connective fabric that binds all things, and I explore that in the lattice. That is what the lattice is.
Wow.
And people have seen that either through meditation or psychedelics or near-death experiences. I mean, there's lots of different ways to see that our actual reality is one that's rooted in connectedness and love and light, that we're all light energy, in our core essence. And, we share that love for bringing, tearing the dogma down and bringing people together. So how do you think about this moment? Because, the reason I'm doing this, is that this really is my soul song. I believe that my biggest purpose in this lifetime is to help humanity make it to this age of abundance for all. And I'm certainly not alone. There's lots and lots of people that really care and are really trying their best, including in, the AI space. People like Demis Hassibis and Mustafa Suleyman, Reid Hoffman, Mira Murati, Dr. Fifi Lee, who have deep intentionality, like really want us to make it to this age. And humanity's never prioritized anything more. 2025 marked around $7 trillion of announcements, towards this advancement of AI and the creation of AGI. And, once we accomplish AGI, then we'll accomplish artificial superintelligence after that. How do you think about this moment? Because, if you, I don't know whether or not you believe in reincarnation. We haven't discussed that, but I do. But it essentially, we chose to be here during this moment in evolution. We chose to incarnate, knowing that humanity would face this fateful choice. Are we going to allow love to conquer fear? Or are we going to continue to play the zero-sum, scarcity, fear-based game that, quite frankly, would destroy us with technologies as powerful as we're talking about here? And I'm 95% certain we make it, as I've talked about many times
Yes,
on this podcast. I'm just curious how you see this moment.
AI is developing things that I don't understand right now. When I've watched your podcast and I've listened to people talk about the things that are happening, and it's sort of all wondrous to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that as we make tools that are ever more powerful, we achieve an age of abundance in form. We can, in many ways, we kind of landed there already, at least in this nation. And it will continue to become, the things we're able to get, the information we're able to acquire, the way in which we're able to beam an excellent material to a place that before didn't have access to that excellent material. All of these things are increasing at this incredible rate to me.
All right.
And so in a way, at least in my lifetime, I feel as though the challenge and the opportunity is the same challenge and opportunity that we have always had, which is in the territory of why. Practicing awareness and participating in those things that make us most human. You're probably familiar with David Hawkins.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've covered How to Surrender to God.
Oh, good.
It's one of his books. He's a lot like Anthony DeMello, where they're both just so joyous and funny.
Yes.
They're like the George Carlin of spiritual teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. His theory of levels of consciousness has made an enormous impact on me. And just for the listener, the idea is that there's two big categories. There's force and there's power. And he has a book called Power versus Force.
Yeah. I think that's his most famous book.
Probably. And in the space of force, one of the great insights is that anything thought or done in a mindset, in a level of consciousness and force, must beget counterforce, that it generates a force against. And then anything done in power is done in the support of the significance of life itself. And so those lower levels of consciousness and force include things like, it begins with shame and moves through grief and apathy and fear, which we're talking about here, And fear, I think, is in the middle. It can we can pull it all into fear if we want. But fear, anger, and pride, those are all levels of consciousness that live in a space of this oppositional force. And in that space, in essence, we're doing things to try to get things. We're moving in the world in force to try to manipulate or achieve. And so if we're at the very top of the spectrum, pride, it's pretty innocuous. But hey, I love my sports team and I'm proud of our sports team. And what the counterforce is to that is, well, yeah, but we love our sports team.
Right.
And there you have the duality. And something in fear is going to accomplish something similar as well. And so this is really the instrument of power in the political sense. As we ascend in his levels of consciousness models, the pivot point is courage. And then above courage, I love his first level in power not in the political sense, but power in the sense of supporting the significance of life itself. It's a space where you no longer are concerned with whether or not you get the seat on the airplane or the person next to you gets the seat on the airplane. You've sort of gotten to a point where you realize there's one seat on the airplane and somebody has to get it.
Right.
And if you don't get this one, you'll get the next one. And that's the first level in power. And above that, you get to things like joy and love.
Right.
And enlightenment and places that most humans don't get to too much. So anyway, I say all of that to share my response on this path we're on, right? We're on this hockey stick with AI and the opportunity for human achievement at a level we've never seen before.
Right.
We can do so much, but do we do it in force, or do we do it in power? I think that's the big question. I think it's the question that you ask really in this whole adventure, and I feel like that's always been the question. And I understand that with AI and the things you're seeing that are far more insightful than I in the world of technology and in global perspective, I think you're feeling urgency around it.
Oh, me and many, many technologists. I mean, some people they've felt it, I think, through the lens of intense fear. Think about the 37,000 people in April of 2023, just 5 months after ChatGPT had been launched. As we're recording this, like we're barely over 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT.
Wow.
And they signed that moratorium call. Just like, stop using, let's just have a pause on all AI development for 6 months until we figure out what's going on here. And I thought that was ridiculous, frankly, back then, because, if your tribe discovers fire, we've talked about fire, then of course, you're going to share it. Like it's almost like it's like too good for humanity has to have it, like to warm, our caves back then and cook our food and, advance the species. And that is how I look at AI. But I do think that God works through us all, whatever people want to view God as. And I'm not professing to understand the nature of God but something created the Big Bang and led to the miracle of all of us being here. And every materialist has to deal with that. Grant me that miracle, I'll explain everything else to you.
Just the one.
And, that technology is going to force us to make a very fateful choice. And, in the lattice, what I explore is that we find out that species throughout the universe had reached a certain level of advancement like we're at now and had to make that same fateful choice themselves. One of the challenges I always have to the people that believe in UAPs, and I have no reason not to believe in them. I've never had that experience, but I don't, it's hard for me to imagine that all the people are lying about it. I don't believe that either. Is okay if they've ever visited us, that means they've conquered faster than light speed travel or interdimensional travel, meaning that they would have faster and light speed weapons or interdimensional weapons if they did not already allow love to conquer fear, because they would have had the ability to destroy themselves amplified so many times over even what we have today with nuclear weapons, that they would have had to make that fateful choice. And so they must be here to help us in some way or be benevolent in some way. And, you know, I think that this acceleration is so pronounced that it's going to lead to us making that fateful choice. The other thing, and I think you were kind of going there, but just to clarify, is that I love what you're saying about that it will allow us to advance in form, understood, but I also think it's going to allow us to advance in essence.
Ooh.
And the reason why is that, you know, advancements like brain-computer interfaces are going to lead to a place where we're able to decode what our reality actually is. You know, you and I believe there is something divine about consciousness. We're going to be able to prove that scientifically. That's what happens at the beginning of the lattice.
Wow.
And once we prove that, science and spirituality don't have to be dogmatically separated. They can come back together. There's no, it's unnecessary suffering to be like, it's you know, my tribe versus your tribe all over again. It just doesn't even matter. And, you know, the ancient mystics, what they were talking about led to thousands of years later, the proof of it in quantum physics. You know, it made the patriarchs of the field like Max Planck become very spiritual as a result. You know, Oppenheimer later on became very spiritual, you know, quoted from the Bhagavad Gita. So it is team humanity all the way, though. The next 10 to 15 years are going to be that time where I think, A, we're going to discover more and more about what our reality actually is, which is going to help us unite. But B, we're going to have to make that choice to allow love to conquer fear, because in a way we have no choice but to do that. You know, imagine the vast majority of humanity having access to artificial superintelligence. I think they'll use it mostly for good. Yeah, we're going to have terrorists that will use it for bad, but there are so many good actors that will fight that. And I do agree with Byron on episode 11 that, you know, that most human beings, you know, the vast majority of human beings are wired deeply for good. And that is our soul. That is our essence.
That's what I get to see every day for sure.
Yeah, you do.
And that's what I witness.
You really do.
I witness beauty, and I mean, it's a bubble, but it's a big bubble at this point. I see a lot of people from a lot of places. And I think that one of the laws that is clear to me is that energy begets energy. Mm-hmm. And we feel that when we're feeling lazy and sitting on the couch all day, we just makes us feel more lazy. You don't gain energy from doing that. You gain energy from putting energy out. And the energy of love, the energy of kindness is an attractant, and it brings more people to it. And I think of, you know, the practical person, the foot soldier in me that's out there working to make change with something so gentle, something so small and simple and ancient on a day-to-day basis is I know that the many links in the chain have to come together to be strong. Yeah.
Well, let's witness some beauty right now.
Ooh,
I would love to witness some beauty right now.
Well, I've been thinking about it, Brett.
This is a first for the Love Conquers
Is that
Fear
right?
podcast.
Oh my goodness!
This is it. Yeah.
Lucky me. So I think the piece I should play, partially because it's just one of my all-time favorites, a beautiful piece of music, is from Paraguay. And the composer's name is Agustín Barrios Mangoré. He was a member of the Guarani native peoples. And he wrote a piece called Julia Florida, or Julia Florida. And this is it. I will just say that I feel like it's a kind of ascension. And so it's maybe a prayer.
This is a prayer for humanity to make it. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
I love how he ends that. Just
gosh.
a little prayer.
I am so thankful for our friendship and
Thank you, Brad.
for your heart.
Me too.
All that you do out there in the world. And, you know, it takes all of us with Team Humanity. And
that's it.
You're putting a lot of love and light out there. And that was an absolutely beautiful moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you again so much for being on. Yeah.
We'll do everything we can.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to Love Conquers Fear. What a special, special episode. Stay tuned. Fully booked. It's amazing who's coming on the podcast and really having a heart shift out there. I'm getting more and more messages every day from people who have picked up books that have been discussed on this podcast, have supported initiatives. Katie Brown has been getting so much love recently for Scorpion Creek Ranch. You know, shout out to her. Michael Collins is raising a lot of money for Intuition. Just a beautiful, beautiful documentary series. And there's a lot of good stuff happening. And so those vibrations in the universe, let's keep them coming. I appreciate all of you and all the love you're sending my way and all the light. Thank you.